Uh, um, I hear some grumblings. Either someone didn't eat or somebody is telling me you should wait till 4:30. I'm going to assume that it's the wait till 4:30.
Yeah, we should.
Okay. I got 4:29, 4:29, 4:29.
What do you?
Okay. That's interesting. With this minute to go, does Donna want to sit next to Paul so you can read off the computer screen of your stuff, or do you want to be at the podium? I guess Deneen just told me last year that they did it from the podium or from the sit down. Well, then let's go with the sit down. We needed that extra minute.
Grab your name tag too, Donna.
Oh yeah.
Your name tag, put it on the table. My name tag?
All right. Well, guess what?
I have one. When did I get one?
Oh, come on, Donna.
Oh, I never had one, honestly.
Yes.
Is that my 20-year anniversary?
Oh, you got it. That didn't go much. Welcome everybody in the room or watching live at home or watching tape at a later date to the Thursday, July 31st, 2025, first of two 2026 budget workshops here for the Webster Town Board. And before we start off, I promised the town board I was going to keep this to less than 2 minutes, a little preamble as we enter into the meat of budget setting season. I had a handout tonight. It was also uploaded to the town website and social media platforms 48 hours in advance of this meeting. It's a one-page summary of the last 5 or 6 years of budgets for the town. And I'm very proud of the fact that the last 5 years' budgets, 21 through 25, that selfishly I have been the supervisor overseeing, all came in under the New York State tax cap. What you're about to see tonight and next week are 13 or 14 of our town department heads presenting their budgets for 26 as they sit right now. The aggregate of these presentations you're about to see already have a proposed 2026 budget under the New York State tax cap. Now, once we get through these 2 weeks of these presentations and we get past August 7th, Paul Adams is our finance director and department heads and legal and a lot of different people. We will spend the next 4 weeks somewhat making some tweaks where needed within the budget, but I am pretty confident that I can speak on behalf of the town board that when we show up on Thursday, September 4th is the tentative town board meeting date to adopt what I think, Paul, you call a preliminary budget, or Deneen, it's called a...
It's tentative budget, it'll become the preliminary once adopted.
Correct. And then last but not least, staying within the 2 minutes, I am going to call attention to the Excel spreadsheet, one-page PDF that was uploaded for this meeting, but has also been handed out to all the board members, to all the attendees tonight, department heads. That does really give some critical information about the 2020 budgets, tax rates, various things that really, at the end of the day, determine if the town governance is operating fiscally responsible for its citizens and its taxpayers. So, and with that being said, I went a little over 2 minutes. We are going to have our first presentation. This was not by alphabetical order, but it happens to be Donna Kumar, our fearless assessor. So I'll hand the baton to you.
Thank you. Did you want me to go through this line by line or just point out the highlights?
You can hit the highlights.
We'll hit the highlights then. Thank you. As far as personnel goes, that's usually under contract. There is one difference I'd call your attention to, is that we had a part-time position that was open, and you're gonna see the reduction from 26 to 27 on part-time, I'm sorry, I'm in the 27 revaluation mode, let me back up. From 25 to 26 budget, you're going to see a reduction in the part-time employee line, but you're also going to see an increase in the full-time, and that's because we took that part-time position and made it into a temporary full-time position until the revaluation is completed. So that is the difference in the .1 accounts there. Everything else is pretty much stable. I'll point out that our office supplies is up a little bit because $1,300 of that is going towards purchase of envelopes. We've decided to budget a certain number of envelopes towards all those mailings that are gonna be happening in 2027. So we're getting a little ahead of the game, so we don't have to buy up all of those multiple mailings, the envelopes townwide, all in one budget year. So that's a request there to try and spread that anticipated expense over the two budgets for 26 and then again in 27. And then the other highlight of an increase is obviously the reassessment line. That is up according to the contract that we have with KLW for the 2026 obligation of our payments to them, getting ready for the 2027 revaluation. One other thing that might need a little explanation, the line below that is legal consulting. As you know, the town attorney was previously doing the work for the assessment office, and now it is the retired, yet somewhat working for us and assessing, I'm glad to say Charles Genesi has stayed with us. So the amount of money for the consulting for legal, for the assessment litigation cases is now on this line, and it came out of the assessment attorney line up above, which now is 0 at the top of your screen. That is the highlights. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
How are you, Donna?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Councilman?
Good. I just have one question on line number, let's see, A1355 40025. So the actual for 2024 was 5,200. The budget for 2024 was 9,800, and then in 2026, you're budgeting 31,150.
Thank you. I didn't mean to skip over that. Thank you for pointing that out. These are appraisals. Sometimes we have a professional appraiser give us an opinion. We have 2 solar farms that I have on. One hasn't really actually happened, but there is one that you know of is moving forward.
Right.
We would like to get a professional appraisal on that property. And then Fairlife, I've budgeted $20,000 for that appraisal for Fairlife to put an appropriate value on that property. And some may say, why do you need to have that property appraised if they're going to be in a pilot agreement and they have standard tax payments? That's because their special district charges will govern off of what is put on the assessment roll. So what I put on that roll is still an important number.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Well, hey, what a fun year you're gonna have in 2026, I think. What are we doing, a revaluation, a reassessment starting January 1st?
January 1st, a lot of that back work is going to start happening. We'll be doing data verification coming up. We have all sorts of things planned to connect with the community, trying to make them aware of what's behind the scenes in the process. We have parts for them to participate on, but our staff is going to get really crunching and busy starting in January of 2026. We'll be tired by the time the public comes around and starts talking to us. We'll have done so much work.
I just want to say that at the library back 9 nights ago, Tuesday, July 22nd, there were 70 plus people in that room, plus 4 or 5 media outlets. And Donna, you were fantastic. How you presented, how you answered people's questions, consummate pro. That was fantastic.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I enjoy that.
You can tell. You're a teacher. All right, well, we don't want to short you,
Well,
but
there's one, do you wanna talk about the software licensing and your plans for,
Oh,
for,
yeah.
I think that's a good thing to call out.
Sure, thank you for that. So we have had a program that we have been using, and there's a link on our website now to something called ImageMate Online. That company that hosts that software for us is now been purchased by another company called Schneider Geospatial. They're a national company, and what they do is pretty much the same thing as ImageMate Online. So what kind of software am I talking about? It is all of our really geeky, technical, behind the scenes, you know, how do we call a ranch and this and that, and it takes all of those numbers and things that we put into our computer software, and it puts it out there in real terms. So if you have a ranch house, it says ranch. Instead of the numbers we have to put, the codes we put into the computer, and your exemptions are gonna be labeled as, you know, it's the basic STAR program, instead of the code we put in the computer. So it gives the public an opportunity to look up their property, see what we have on file for them, and then behind the scenes we have all sorts of pictures and survey maps and tax maps and things that our staff have attached to that, thus the ImageMate. It's matching images to the database that we have. So it's a separate program from the program we use in the state. The state has organized a program for us called RPS, and we use that to do all of our valuation and maintaining the data. Now that program being sold goes off to Geo Schneider. We're going to be using their program called Beacon. We're going to be able to offer subscriptions so that from the convenience of your home, you will be able to, or from your office if you're a real estate attorney or an appraiser or a realtor, and you want to have all that public information, the convenience 24/7 at home. We're gonna be able to offer you subscriptions coming up next year. It's part of this budget, so we can't get ahead of that and do it now. But there's also a feedback page, which we are going to launch this September, so come to our exemption workshop on September 25th, right here in this room, from 5 to 7 p.m. Come find out what kind of exemptions you could have, but also according to this software, you can look up your property and we will be able to help you verify the information that you have. This is the first step to making sure that we do produce good values in the revaluation, and I really want to encourage anyone to come out or use that once we get it online. And once we have made that conversion from the one software to the other, I think you're going to find it to be very user-friendly and very easy to use, but will help you walk through that if that's what you need. Correct the data. If your house isn't 1,692 square feet, let us know and we'll make the correction for you. Might need a site visit to do that, but if we don't have accurate data, we're not going to be able to produce good values. And so that's an exciting time too. There's really a lot of interesting things happening this year in the assessment office.
Thank you.
So is that program gonna be associated, or we have to pay an extra fee, or is it, you know, common for realtors and lawyers and, you know, appraisers?
I think that anybody who owns a home in Webster will find it interesting to look up their own property to see what we have gathered on it. We're gonna be able to tell you the age of your pool, the age of your deck, the age of your garage if it wasn't built at the same time as your house. How big is your garage? How big is your house? Is it 1 story, 2 story? Do we think it's a split level? Do we think it's a colonial? How many acres do you have? That's all the kind of information that we collect on properties, and people at the average everyday resident or business owner will be able to look up their property and see what we have on file, because we need to know that we're using the best data. And if we don't have the right data, maybe you did fill in that pool. Well, let's take it off the inventory before we go and produce the values. It's better to do that in advance and produce a correct value than to have to circle back later and correct it after we've produced the values. So the additional pictures and the surveys and that will be most valuable to the closing attorneys, the real estate attorneys, and the appraisers. I think that the average person could also find that interesting. As it is right now, the current software does do that. And if you wanted to see everything that our employees can see, you can come into the town hall when the town hall is open and have access to all of those records.
And it's complimentary.
It's complimentary. It's a public access terminal that we have right in our wing for the DPW and engineering, building department, assessing office. That wing has this computer right there and you can look yourself up.
I noticed you have a uniforms in here, and you didn't have it in 225, but 2026 you have. I mean, it's amount only 300, but still, it's uniforms for?
Well, I don't call it uniforms, I guess that's Paul's term for that budget line number. People who are out in the field, such as myself and the appraiser, will purchase shirts or jackets that has the town logo on it. So that's why my budget is small, there's just the two of us that would be out in the field at any given time, where we want to be able to identify ourselves as a town of Webster employee above and beyond the badge. Sometimes the badge gets in the way and cumbersome, so we'll sport a jacket or a shirt when we're gonna be out in the field.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thanks, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
All right, well, next up, we have Paul
Finance.
Adams, Finance. Always an interesting one.
All right. My budget is relatively brief. The salaries are mainly driven by the white collar union contract. There's a 2% COLA increase built in this year according to the contract, and I've built in step increases for any employees that are in line for that, which is the main reason for the $12,000 increase in the full-time employee compensation. Capital purchase I kept around 800, nothing big planned there. Computer equipment and licensing, it's actually dropped about $3,900. In '25 I had to purchase a number of computers to comply with Windows 11. 26 I won't have that need, so it's just basically paying for license agreements for Microsoft, Adobe, etc. Seminars and conferences, I built in attendance at some GFOA events, Association of Towns, and I've been trying to encourage my employees to take some training throughout the year as well. I know that Kim Hendy is actually in the process of getting her, they call it a GFI, it's the Government Financial Institute, it's part of the GFOA, and she'll achieve certain certifications on the finance side, and she'll get exposed to some things which she normally doesn't see on a daily basis, so I think it's been good so far. Financial software tools, that is basically $1,500 for program updates and about $3,000 for a program called Lease Crunch. Lease Crunch is used to comply with GASB 87, where we have to actually calculate some long-term values on the leases, and they end up getting booked as debt service. So it's a requirement that's been in place for about 2 or 3 years now. Financial consultants, we do contract with a number of consultants which include Municipal Solutions. They handle our bond consulting. We're currently in the process of going out to do a small serial bond and a bond anticipation note toward the end of August. And they're a key player in not only selling the bond, but monitoring the entire process and working with the town's bond council. This line also includes actuarial services. We're required to get a valuation of our other long-term post-employment benefits. That's also to comply with the GASB, but it ends up being booked as a liability within the financials at the end of each year. So we use a consultant for that. And this line also includes lifetime benefit services, which they play a role in our HRA and our HSA monitoring. Office supplies, pretty flat year to year. Machine lease, that's up $800. We're leasing a copier printer from Toshiba. So it's a little more expensive than our previous machine, but still quite reasonable. Software fees are up about $9,000. The main driver of that, it was the end of our 3-year deal with Tyler Technology. They provide Munis, which is the complete financial package that the town uses. So that's up 5%, plus we've added TCM, which is a software that we'll use to go paperless for purchase orders and for invoice entry. Basically, it allows images of PDF documents to be tied to the data within Munis. So as you're reviewing a transaction, you'll be able to actually see the supporting source documents. So that's a project we're currently working on. Hope to have it in place by the end of the year. We'll see.
Excellent.
Software conversion costs, $3,000. Trying to build in some money for some ongoing training. The Munis software is certain parts of it are quite complex, and Kelsey Feeney and Kim Hendy and Brayton are very much into maximizing the potential of the software. So I'd like to build in some training, consulting fees throughout the year, which helps everyone maximize the potential and do things right within the software program. And the other piece is the independent audit. It is up slightly year to year, about $3,300. We utilize Mengel, Metzger, and Barr, who does the annual audit, in addition to agreed upon procedures engagements for the court, town clerk, and receiver of taxes. So that's up slightly. So overall, the budget's up about, I don't have a grand total here, but it's up about 23,000, or about 4% year to year. So all in all, it's not too bad.
I appreciate the team's work in going paperless. And even though there's an additional cost to that software, what we're gonna find over time is that there's gonna be a reduction in supplies. There'll be a reduction in paper, there's gonna be maybe a soft cost, but a reduction in the amount of time it takes to process all of these vouchers and whatnot. It'll make it easier for those who need to approve the bills to be able to do that electronically from anywhere. So,
Yeah, I think overall we're going to gain some efficiencies. I'm sure we're going to hear some complaints because, you know, it's a departure from what we've always done. It'll be an adjustment for some of the departments, but we'll all get used to it eventually.
So I wanna just mention a couple things. Well, first of all, I wanna thank you very much for giving the historical actuals for each department.
It's a great tool.
Well, it's fantastic. And while you are up 25, 30,000 year to year from 25 to 26, if you look back to, if you compare 2021 to 2026, you've reduced costs $29,532 given that time span. But this just gives you an actual way to take a look at, so you budgeted X amount of dollars in 2024, you can look at 2024's actuals to give you a bit of a barometer as to where you want to be, or where you think you're going to be in 2026. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, we could definitely go back and look at what lines can be tweaked, not only my budget, but throughout the entire budget.
Correct.
If we want to get to that level, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know, we just talked by overtime line probably can come down a bit. A couple years ago it was running quite high, 24, not so bad. So I think that line's still budgeted a bit high, probably take it down. That's just one example.
Yep. I mean, the tools there, like, it'd be a great tool to use. I mean, because I went through every line and I saw the actuals, and I focused in on the 2024 actuals compared to the 2024 budget. And there's some pretty big deltas there, not just the air department, not just saying, and as a general statement. and comparing that to the 2025 projections.
No, you're right. Like, one example is historically, employee benefits have been budgeted quite generously. Actuals coming in quite a bit under. That gap is getting less and less and less. So I don't think you're gonna see that going forward, but, historically, there's been extra money in there, which is part of the reason our surplus has been built.
John, just so are you, this is the part that you like, in how, I think if I understand it, he said, he's got the 2024 actual versus 2024 budget.
Yes.
But we could also show what those budgets were for 23, 22, 21. Is that?
No, I was complimenting him on putting the actuals in there because you can see a history for 21 to 24.
Yeah.
But when I was going through each line on the entire budget, I would compare the 2024 budget to the 2024 actual, and then look at the projection for 2025 to see what the deltas are. And it's a great tool for all our departments.
No, it is, and and it's funny, and I know it could potentially be a rabbit hole to go back and look at 23 actual versus 23 budget. But you know what we're basically
It's just
saying
nice to have the information.
It is, and we
really
say
is.
this almost every year at budget time. This town, long before I was supervisor, long before you were on before any of us were on the board, conservatively budgets. And so within conservatively budgeting, revenues are conservative in the budget, we end up with more revenues actual. Expenses are conservatively budgeted, so that means our actuals end up having less expenses. And I think the sheet that I referenced earlier that shows the fund balance aggregate of the town, one of the reasons why that fund balance continues to grow of all these funds is that conservative budget. Our actuals for the last 5 years, Paul, I think 24, we had budgeted for a $3 million loss,
About 3 million.
and then we ended up having about a $2 million gain.
Correct.
So where we thought we were gonna bring our fund balances down by 3 million, and we were using them to make ends meet, that year actually had us grow our fund balances by $2 million. So anyway, conservative budgeting is a good thing. Okay. Anybody else have questions or comments for Paul?
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, well, guess what, Braden? You're 4 minutes ahead of time here.
Well, let's keep that trend going. The request for 2026 for the Department of Human Resources is a maintenance of effort budget with very little changes. Our 26 budget will be $283 less than our 25 budget. Essentially, we found internally the ability to offset the personnel cost increases with reducing software licensing fees, which those are monies that we put in there if we need extra support projects for the Munis ERP. Finance and HR share that product, and it's budgeted in both locations. And then the other thing is I went back and looked at some prior budgets, and our 2021 budget was $145,200. Our 2026 budget is $141,236. So we're about $4,000 less. We're down 2.7% compared to 2021. And then, well, that's, then it's open to questions. There's not a ton going on there since it's a department of one and we are controlling our expenses.
No complaints there.
So I see you budgeted $4,500 in 2024 for capital purchases of computers. And your actual that year was $590, and then you're budgeting $4,000 for next year.
Yeah, for capital
Capital
purchases.
purchases, computers 2011.
Yep, computer equipment and licensing. No, we're budgeting for 20011, we're budgeting $660.
Yeah, my form says 2026 says $4,000.
It's just
That
the
is
next
for line
line.
4000, safety and department-based trainings.
No, it's right here. That's why I brought my ruler.
Is the screen, does the screen match up with your paper? It could be just a copy.
Yeah, my copy is wrong, because my copy says 4,000, sorry about that. It does,
Probably just a shift in a spreadsheet somewhere.
yeah.
No questions.
Good job, Braden, thank you.
Thanks.
Keeping it short for you.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe we need that time because Chief, you're up.
Good evening. Alright, so overall, the police department requested budget is $388,259 over last year's. Of that, 78.4% of it is personnel costs, mostly contractual. So starting at the top there with my salary, it's actually salary and compensation because it's not completely salary. Base pay 162,058, which is a 2% COLA increase in line with the other department heads. Longevity and education incentive, which is derived from the 1,000 club contract based on the position, and then there's an additional 12,000 for the retirement buyout that the town board approved last year. So so the town doesn't contribute towards any long-term retirement fund for my position because I'm retired in New York State retirement system. So right now, for a tier 2 employee, that retirement percentage is around 30% for based on salary. So instead of contributing $48,000 or so to New York State for a retirement fund, the town pays out about $12,000 directly for that. When you get to officer salaries, there's two real components that made that significant increase. One is a 3% contractual increase for the 1,000 club, which is about $109,000. The second one is contractual step increases. So as we hire new employees, as they gain experience, their salary step increases year over year. One of the strategies we took in the last contract is to extend that out. We added an extra step, so the town now has 6 steps when it comes to salary growth. So out of the increase of $263,170, there's 109 for the contractual percentage and 153 for the step increases for the employees. Now, when you look at that over the next 5 years, that starts to drop significantly. So if there's no change in staffing over the next 5-year period, that step increase goes down year after year. So it cuts in half next year, drops down another 20,000 a year after that, 10,000, then 20,000, then it's down to 0, so that they've all reached top step at that point. When it gets to salary compensation for retirements, that is kind of a gamble as to whether there's people retiring or not. When you look at the buyout for vacation, sick, and comp time for the contract when the employees leave, the last 3 retirees have averaged about $45,000 per retiree. So we've seen in law enforcement a trend. Out of the last 13 employees that have retired, the average length of service is 20 years and 2 months. So we see people when they hit their 20, they leave. So currently, we have one patrol officer that can leave. When this budget was created, there was actually two. Lieutenant Webster retired this week from the department. So that increase, the budgeting, there was a zero increase on it, but the systemic numbers, so I wanted to cover it. When it comes to non-holiday pay, we budgeted 40,000. That is one that is very hard to project. So if you look at it contractually, each employee, captain down, or I'm sorry, below the captain, lieutenant down in the union, has the option of either taking holidays in pay or holidays in comp time. If they take it in pay, it's almost a $200,000 expense. Most employees take it in comp, but we don't know that when we initiate the budget as to whether they're going to do that for the next year. So our spending, our actuals over the last 3 years have averaged about 28,000. So that 40,000 budget is more just hedging our bets that if some people take it in pay and have less comp time, that we have some money to cover that increase. Another significant portion of the budget is the police overtime. We're holding that flat at the 300,000 with that as a target. Historically, we've been over that. If you look at the last 3 years, the overtime budget has averaged about $346,000. So it's actually over that 300,000 mark. Most of that has to do with either low head count for some of those years, or having people off the road and having to cover the vacancies on the road. Some of those vacancies off the road have to do with either a medical leave, long-term injury, maternity leave. We have 2 officers out right now on maternity leave, or they have to do with discipline processes. As we've talked in the past, the discipline process can take anywhere up to a year and a half to initiate. Luckily, we currently don't have any of those going on, but we did go through a period of time there where we did. So our goal is to control that overtime down to that $300,000 mark by having our staffing actually on the road operational. And again, that kind of ties to the conversation about headcount with having additional training time for employees. So our department is a little bit different than most others. Even when we hire somebody at the police officer academy level, we're still not going to have them operational for almost a year. It'll be about a 9-month process before they're actually staffing a car on the road on their own. Some of the other ones that are significant, not to bore you with each one, but officer comp time buyout, that is a educated guess as well based on historicals. As officers accrue their comp time at the end of the year, they're mandated to buy it down to 80 hours, but they have the option of buying it down to 0, so it all depends on what the officer's preference is at the end of the year. So we have, over the years, separated that out from overtime, created its own line to try to track that better, and our last 4 years have put us anywhere between 122 and 155. So that's kind of where we're at. It's been trending towards that upper number. It was 148, 154, so we're expecting to be around the 155 number this year. Another increase is the clerical salaries. We have 4 clerk positions and 1 property clerk / quartermaster, so 5 full-time civilian positions. They got a 2% COLA increase, so that results of 6.4% of the total differential in the 25-26 budget. We do have 1 part-time vehicle maintenance position that we use to run our vehicles to the different services, so we're not paying patrol officers for those for that time. School crossing guards, again, there's 1 crossing guard location in town that it's our obligation to staff. Over this past year, we haven't had a crossing guards. We've been using police officers to do it. That's caused some logistical issues and resulted in overtime, so we're going back to hiring somebody for that position for the fall so that we can help control the overtime costs associated with that. As I move down the list here, the ARPA bonus, $8,500, that was part of the negotiation process. It's a contractual incentive for captain and below, $2,500 paid in December,
It's the last year of it.
and that's, yeah, it's the last year.
Final year.
Third and final year. Computer licensing and equipment, about $20,000 of that is the user licensing, and about $16,000 is the equipment that we, for computer upgrades and rotation. Capital purchase offices, we have 2 projects for next year. We're replacing 2 clerk desks and the roll call room desks and chairs. It's part of our planned progression to update the workspace. So you see a significant increase in the capital purchase miscellaneous. That is for our body worn camera equipment. So our 5-year contract for our current body worn cameras expires in May. So we're going through the testing phase right now to try to select a new vendor. The one we have isn't meeting our needs. So ultimately, our goal would be to acquire a grant to pay for any equipment costs that come along with that, but we don't know if we're going to get approved for that, so we have to budget accordingly to try to make sure we have continuity with that program. The body worn cameras are a necessity in law enforcement these days. Let's see here. Capital purchase firearms, 2 patrol rifles, and the ammunition conversion kits. As we talked about last budget cycle, we are in the process of transitioning our duty pistols to a new make and model with a red dot optic on it. So we're going to upgrade our ammunition conversion kit. So essentially, those are the kits that we use for reality-based training to make the training officers go through as realistic as possible. It allows them to use the same style weapon, holstered, and all that to make it more realistic. For this budget cycle, we have 3 patrol vehicles. There are going to be 3 marked vehicles this year. So both the combination of the vehicle and vehicle accessory line. So to set up the equipment, it's about $14,000 per vehicle, $1,000 for graphics, and about $45,000 for the actual vehicle. For our fleet, we have 13 marked patrol cars, and we have 8 unmarked / special use vehicles. So that puts us on a 3-year vehicle, 3-year rotation for vehicles. Let me rephrase that. 3 vehicle per year as part of the rotation for the 21 total vehicles. Capital purchase DWI, that's a radar unit, road screener. Professional development is for the Chiefs Conference and National Academy membership. Cellular telephones, that's another large expense. It's something we do differently than some of the other police departments. We issue a cell phone to each patrol officer, each sworn member, to fulfill their duties. It's basically a mobile office, has access to all of our policies, procedures, training material, and it's on the FirstNet network, so it ensures communication continuity in a critical incident. The other benefit to it is it keeps officers' personal devices out of any kind of discovery issue if it's associated with a criminal arrest. That's been working out very well for us. Another large expense is service contracts. That's essentially software as a service. A lot of the things that we're using for both management and investigative processes are contractual now. So some of the big ones, Lexipol, that's our policy manual, that's $15,859 for next year. We do get a $4,000 grant from PERMA for having that. It's a well-recognized policy manual that has some incentive to it, so we get $4,000 back from PERMA for that. Provision is our body-worn camera software. That's a $20,000 annual expenditure, so that's last year of that contract. IA Pro is a $4,500 contract that is for our personnel management. So for those who aren't super familiar, the discovery process where we have to provide information to the district attorney's office as part of officers' performance and history. that helps us track that. Case Guard's a software program for the plate readers. Daigle is that was $4,800 annually. Daigle Law Group, that's $2,700. That's supervisory training for sergeant and up. Provides a monthly enhanced training which fulfills our accreditation requirement for supervisory training, and it is really good content to help raise the knowledge level of our supervisors. Moving down through a couple of these, there's really not much change with most of those. Gasoline is probably the next biggest expense when it comes to unknown. We budget $100,000. Luckily, the last couple of years we haven't needed to reach that level, but that fluctuates. The other one I just wanted to cover real quick, the vehicle repairs. We have $45,000 budgeted. We typically see about $16,000 reimbursed from the insurance companies. A lot of those are from fleet vehicle accidents, and there is some reimbursement that comes from other operators. When you get down to clothing expense for the $45,000, uniforms and vests, each ballistic vest has a 5-year rotation replacement per manufacturer recommendation. So we have to purchase it's right around 6 or 7 vests a year to keep up with that requirement. The Employee Assistance Program, that was a new initiative in '25, joint with the Sheriff's Department. They opened up their services to towns that are interested. We budgeted for it, expressed interest in it, and it still hasn't launched. I was just contacted about 2 weeks ago that they're getting ready to launch that program, so the money budgeted for for 25, the $22,000, hasn't been expended yet, so there's probably going to be some residual from that, but we're expecting that to be fully operational by New Year's for 26 budget. And the rest are no increase, typical expenditures. For revenue, really no changes in revenue. The biggest one obviously is the reimbursement from the school, Webster Central School District for the school resource officers. That's 75% of their total compensation or total cost. So in the officer salary line, that results in about $160,000 being reimbursed from that expenditure, and then the rest is out of the healthcare retirement contribution aspect of their costs.
Per the contract, we bill them twice a year.
And then that's kind of covers revenue. There's not a lot of money to be made in law enforcement. Do you want to run right through animal control too while I'm going? Or do you want to pause? Oh, get the head shake.
No.
Okay.
I'm fine, I don't know about the rest of the members of the board.
Keep going.
Okay. For animal control, we run a part-time model. We don't have full-time animal control officers, so Barb Hollins leads that unit and does a fantastic job. Puts in a lot of effort as a part-time employee, and then her and Tracy and a couple others have been bringing on board fulfill that staffing. Not much change there when it comes to their expenditures. We have to get them a new computer. That's where that came from. We didn't do it in '25. Haven't done it in '25 with kind of the uncertainty of what's going on. Other than that, there's really not much change to their budget. No real revenue to be spoken of there either. Okay. And I'm available for questions.
So I got a couple questions. Well, I have a bunch, but I'll talk to you offline about some other issues. So we provide resource officers to the school district, correct?
Correct.
That we get reimbursed for,
Correct.
with the exception of the summertime.
Correct.
We supply crossing guards, but we don't get reimbursed for that from the school. I'm just curious as to why.
So the crossing guard is a New York State town law requirement, I believe, that the municipality is actually responsible for the crossing guard, not the school district. It's been a while since I've looked it up to actually give you the number, but it's written into a law someplace in New York State town law that requires the municipality to.
So New York State law does not require us to provide school resource officers either.
Correct. That was a discussion that we started about 10 years ago. I think it was either 14 or 15 school year was the first year we did school resource officers. And the reason we settled on the 75-25 is because in the summer,
Right.
they get assigned as traffic cars and they're not under any performance for the school, so they absorb the 75% that they're there, and then we take the 25 for the summer.
Thank you. The only other thing, I was looking at the clerical salaries dating back to 2021. 2021, actual was $250,580. And the budget for 2026 has gone up to $324,883. How many clerical positions have you added since 2021, would you say?
Since 21, so there's only been one added since 21. In 21, I think actually late 20, they took one from part-time to full-time, I believe. So there was 2 full-time, 1 part-time. Before I came back as chief, it went to 3 full-time, and then with the Discovery impact that we've had, we added a 4th clerk last year.
Last year, okay. So you have, would you say you have 5 clerks total now or 4?
So we have 4 clerks plus 1 property clerk, but it's not a clerical, it's for the evidence and property management, not actual like paperwork. She manages all of the evidence that comes in and that destruction and management process.
Okay. But that person is classified as a clerk though, right?
It's not a clerk civil service title, it's a property clerk / quartermaster civil service title
Okay.
that does a different function.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question about the resource officers, because it's flat year over year, but salaries go up year over year. Is that negotiated for a certain period of time, and when would it be up for renegotiation?
Which part are we talking about?
We just signed a new contract.
The school resource officers.
You're talking about on the revenue side?
On the revenue side, yes.
Yeah, so I think the reason why it's flat year over year is because it depends on which officer gets assigned. So it's hard to say exactly this is going to be a revenue for 26 because we have to post it actually for August 1st for a new person that may take the position in September. So in the next billing cycle, the bill's going to be based on that officer's cost, but we don't know who that officer is yet.
Plus, we were short an officer in 24. We didn't have 2 officers for the whole year, so that really cut the revenue back. So we're conservative with the revenue.
I see.
It'll most likely be more than that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Jenny?
Thank you.
Well, I gotta do it to you, Chief.
Yeah.
I have appreciated that when you came on board in, I think, March of 21, and within a month or so, you figured out that the 21 budget that had been done months before had some math errors. And so that was fun, way to start. Your first budget that you actually oversaw was the 22 budget. And we were talking earlier about putting the budgets versus the actuals rabbit hole, that's going back in time. What Chief has done, to the best of my knowledge, is his 22, his 23, and his 24 budgets now we have actuals. And he stayed under those budgets. I think he went over a little bit in 24, but we talked about it at your meeting. It was something totally out of your control. I'm trying to remember, Paul, was it because we had budgeted for the first, we didn't budget any increases to salaries because we didn't have a
It's
contract.
the union
Yeah,
settlement.
and we did a contingency, but it ended up, whatever. And I want to thank you for that because I got to tell you, I mean, obviously everybody knows it is an expensive dollar-wise venture to have a municipal town police department. I think it's been proven in the town of Webster that the cost-benefit analysis is irrefutable. The town loves their police department. Me, I love accounting, and I love things that aren't surprises. And I didn't like the first 2 years that I hear that and I saw it myself, the police budget seemed to go $200,000-300,000 over. The actuals were $200,000-300,000 over. A lot of it was overtime versus holiday pay at the end and those banks, and we just didn't have a good handle on it. And it was always a surprise, and it was a negative thing across the board. I remember some department heads would say to me 6 months, a year into being supervisor, I'm busting my hump to try to keep my budget where my actuals are lower, and then every year the police, basically we have to subsidize $200,000-300,000 of how they go over their budget by that. You have gotten that under control. That does not happen. And that, to me, has major value as a supervisor that has an accounting background, so I want to thank you for that.
Try to do it again.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, next up, and with 6 minutes ahead of time, Chris, Parks and Rec, Chris Bilo.
Okay. So for 26, just a couple notes before I get in and go through some of the highlights and some of these lines. Revenue for all three departments is, again, for Parks and Rec, there is a senior line, there's a rec line, and there's a park line. So between the three for revenue lines, our 2026 totals, $1,338,100, which is a department-wide increase of about 10% from 25 to 26 for revenue. From an expense standpoint, for all three departments, 2026, our total is $2,913,836, which is an increase from 25 of about 4%. So revenue is up about 10%, expenses up about 4%, which is kind of how we like to operate. 2026 budget does not include any new full-time staff, so we are operating with the same staff level that we are in 2025. And then another highlight that I just want to mention as I go through this is in 2026, the department will continue to utilize, from an expense standpoint, for senior programming and as well as youth programming, the Monroe County ARPA funds that were made available this past year, as that carries over into the 2026 purchase year. So we'll take advantage of that. So we've been able to take advantage of it from a budget standpoint on the expense side. So first department up, 6772, which is our program for the aging, or senior line. That department consists of one full-time person, our coordinator, and then one 20-hour part-time employee who is our nutrition aide, works in the kitchen, prepares, and gets things ready for our senior lunch program. No real change to that as you look at that from an expense standpoint. Really the only change that we had from a reduction that was significant for this year is some of a couple other department heads have mentioned on 20011 computer licensing and equipment. That's reduced down. Now all of our computers in the department are up to date for Windows 11, so we were able to reduce that expense. Other than that, we kind of expect everything else, slight increase like we do every year for our provisions, which is the senior lunch program. And again, supplies and miscellaneous, you see a slight reduction there, as well as just above where Paul's got it highlighted now, capital purchases. That's because we plan to take advantage of that county ARPA money. We can use that for programming, again, from a senior standpoint. It's designed and utilized specifically for that program area. So not much change there from an expense standpoint. And the seniors' revenue is, I think, underneath this. Yeah. So we did increase. We do have an emphasis coming this year. Last year, when we added a full-time staff person to the department, we were able to restructure our programmers, and that allowed us to have our senior coordinator, Daphne, really sort of have an emphasis on senior programming, so we're expecting to see an increase in that senior recreation line this coming year, because that is for programs not related to the senior lunch program. So that's why we see that increase there. Senior, that's the nutrition revenue line, that is for the senior lunch program, and then that's the county reimbursement. Very difficult to judge. We try to use actuals at the end of the year, but it's all based on participation and how many lunches are served. We try to keep our lunch count as close to our actual numbers as we possibly can. Our lunch count average right now is around 18 per day. We do see some days where we're up into the mid-30s, and we do see some days when we're down into the lower teens. So that takes care of 6772. So we can go on to the rec side. So 70-20 consists of, obviously we have a recreation director, we have one office manager, we have one finance clerk, and then we have 4.5 positions for programming. Within the expense side under rec, 10087 is our administrative support. That's obviously our front office staff. Just so from a point of clarity, the rec center is open about 115 hours per week. And that while that building is open, that does require staffing. And as we go through and have part-time staff, obviously with the minimum wage continuing to increase, that affects our bottom line. So to cover those 115 hours, it does have an impact on our expense line. 10093, which is strength staff, that is an increase as well. That's tied back to our revenue, though from a membership standpoint, that is specifically tied to fitness programs that we provide. So as we continue to increase our membership level, we try to increase our fitness programs as well. 10093, which is a increase in fitness instruction. Again, same thing. It's all based off from our membership base and what programs are being offered. 20011 computer equipment, similar like I just set up above. Last year we've been able to cut that about in half. Last year was significant just because of the number of computers that we needed to replace. So now this is just for licensing and for a couple of monitors that need to be replaced. 40067, that's one of our big ones. That is our cloud-based storage system for our RecTrack, which obviously takes care of all of our registration. There's an increase in there because this in 26 we'll have a full year of our Cell app, which will become live hopefully early this fall, where we'll be able to actually have registration. People will be able to do registration straight from their phone. So that will be an increase to our current RecTrack offering. 40218 membership training. That's another one I'll highlight. That line is where we have all of our memberships to any of the services that we provide for the department. Things like Constant Contact, which we do our monthly e-news. That's where we have our Sling, which is the front office scheduling system. That's taken from there. We have a new software that allows us to manage our leagues and athletic programs to help Team Snap. So that cost is baked into there, and all those are annual costs that just be able to allow us to be able to perform our duties. Rest of the expense lines that are pretty similar, from year to year. Not a lot of change. Program independent contractors, again, that's all based on revenue. As you see revenue go up, that obviously has a direct tie straight back to our contractors from a line-to-line item standpoint. Rest of the items are pretty standard and straightforward. From a revenue standpoint, a couple of changes just to highlight. That very first line, 2002. This year we are changing it. That's why you can see in 25 as had a revenue expectation of 3,500, and this year it's 420,000. Basically, what we're doing is we're recategorizing how we collect or where we place our revenue. The reason we're doing that, it'll give us an easier way to be able to track all of our camps. So from a camp standpoint, we'll be able to make sure that all of our camps are under one line rather than being lumped in with other programs. So obviously from a camp standpoint, we have preschool, K-5, playground, trip camp, plus during the school year, we have conference day camp. So this will make it easier for us to just be able to monitor those. And then that's why 2003 goes from 400,000 down to 23. So WPRD programs will basically now be any non-contract program that we offer. So if we offer a program that's taught by a staff person, revenue is collected in this line. The next line is where the revenue comes in regards to the independent contractor. So these are contract lines. So any program that we offer that is managed or taught by an outside contractor, and we have a contract in place with them, this is where the revenue is captured for that. So just a little, I'll say, clerical change in how we do it, will make tracking easier for staff and just be able to monitor those revenues throughout the year. 2011, that actually, we will be renaming that to insurance-based fees. So again, we continue to see a nice increase in 25. We had a revenue expectation of around 62,000. We bumped that to 80 for next year. We continue to see our insurance-based members increase. So that's a real good thing for us, and we're at record highs with the number of seniors that are in the building as part of an insurance-based program. Fitness classes, 2035. Fitness classes, last year, if you recall, what we did is we pulled out, Premier memberships used to be baked into that line. We pulled that out, so now that 2035 is basically anything that somebody comes in and is not a current member and has to pay for a class, so if it's a drop-in or if it's a one-time thing, that's where that revenue is captured. We made that decision last year to categorize 2045 for strictly membership. So all of our fitness memberships, whether it's a Premier or a family or a senior membership, whatever it is, a paid membership, goes into that line. And we're able to see continued steady increase. You know, we track this obviously on a monthly basis. The number of households that we build continues to climb. We have not changed our fee structure in several years. As we benchmark every year, we feel like the services that we're providing is, again, as a community facility, is right where it should be. So we've been fortunate that our membership base continues to climb, therefore our revenue shows that on that. Sale of equipment, 2665, that is, we'll be selling off one truck from our parks department along with some other equipment that's slated to go to auction in 26. And then obviously 2780, that's the concession stand sale. So our concession stand is over here at Miracle Field. That concession stand is open for any or for all Miracle Field activities, plus some other special events and some other activities that go on. So we do have revenue that is generated, and now it has its own revenue line rather than again being lumped into our WPRD program line. So again, our revenue is tracking up, which is a good thing. Parks Department, so make sure I have the right notes here. I'm not supposed to. All right, so 20059, capital improvement line. Continue, or before I start, so 7110 Parks, obviously we have one Parks Director. We have 1.5 facilities person, so that's full-time, then a 20-hour-a-week person. Then we have 4 Parks GO, which are our park laborers. So that's the structure within our Parks Department. 20059 capital improvement line. This is to continue with updating of the parking lot program that we started a few years ago. We've been able to update the parking lot and the entrance to first responders 2 years ago, and then this past year, or this year, we've been able to update the parking lot at the Arboretum. 2 very necessary projects that we're very pleased with, so we're going to continue with that effort. Slightly less than this past year as we look to focus at Kent Park and also the Parks Barn. I'm not sure if anybody's ever pulled into the Parks Barn or not, but it is severely needs to be paved and redone. So we're adding that to our list, which will obviously make the wear and tear on vehicles and trailers, et cetera, a lot less. So those are our two big items for '26 as we go in from a project standpoint. Capital purchase for equipment, 20063. We are putting in for what is called a Ventrac mower. That mower will allow us to be able to get to locations in the spring. When we have a wet spring, we are not able to have our mowing contractors get into because they don't have the proper equipment. This piece of equipment will be able to keep up with that mowing service in the early spring. This past year was a perfect example for it. We couldn't touch the outfields of Kent Park until almost June with our commercial mowers. But the Ventrac mower would allow us to be able to do it. We actually demoed it this year a day after one of our commercial mowers got stuck. We were able to mow the outfield with a Ventrac mower. So we're looking to purchase that machine. That'll give us not only the ability to mow those locations, those wet lake locations around town, but also have a boom mower which will be able to help with areas around parking lots that we have for like several of our trailheads, because those aren't part of our mowing maintenance program. Those are actually mowed by the park staff with our current zero turn, so this machine will actually help with that process as well. Capital purchase park improvement fund, that is basically the fund that we use to fix, repair, update, and make any changes that we need to in any of the parks. That generally is a fund that we go to that is beyond what I'll say is our normal operating day-to-day type of expense. So that's where we'll pull those funds from. 40101, the vehicle lease. As I mentioned, we're going to have a revenue for selling off a truck, so we're actually looking to replace one truck. We're looking to replace a 2016 Chevy 2500. That vehicle is reaching its end of life very quickly. So we've been pleased with the new vehicles that is part of the enterprise program that we've had. So we're looking to replace it with a Chevy 2500, which will put our lease count at one facilities van and then 3 parks trucks. And then 40248 lawn service, that is our other big expense that we have. Obviously, that is a contract, so that's built-in cost. We're able to keep that cost under control. This year's been a little more challenging than some in the past, just because of the growing season that we had, especially early on. But we've been able to sort of, let's say, catch up a little bit here late as things started to dry out, and we haven't had to mow. As part of that service, we have the ability to cancel mow jobs or weekly mowing, which can help sort of keep our expense in check. The revenue line that's tied to parks is obviously our lodge rental, sort of a fixed number, kind of consistent from year to year. We do have some, say, group rentals or usage of parks that does get built into this as well. So we did estimate a slight increase for 26. That takes care of the parks, so it takes care of all 3 departments. Questions?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, I don't have any questions. I like the work you're doing to separate the line items so you can see what's happening in specific programs. I think that'll help over time.
Thank you.
Well, are both judges going to present? Well, I don't know if we have name tags for both of them, but Chris is their switch, and I just got to say that, you know, when you came on board back in 20, I remember talking about, and this is oversimplifying it, but at your position in Penfield, you had 700 programs for the recreation department, you had a 4,000 square foot facility. At that time, 2019, previous to COVID, the town of Webster had about 250 programs, about a third of Penfield's. But I had a 40,000 square foot facility. So you said, I think there's a lot of potential to grow the recreation department. And I remember saying to you at that time, I said, you know, you got your expenses of the recreation department, then you got the revenues from these programs. And the revenues, you know, were a lot less than the expenses, all right, but we're not a for-profit business, so that's fine. I said, do you ever think we'd get to the point where our revenues would exceed the expenses? And you said, no, that's, then we're a YMCA or we're a Midtown or whatever. But with that being said, in 2021, your expenses actual for the recreation department were $507,000 more than the revenue you brought in. 4 years later, in 2024, your expenses were $443,000 more than revenue. You actually closed that gap. Now, the revenue increased, so did the expenses, but the net, the delta between them, got less and less, which means that's a great benefit for the town taxpayers. We have more programs. You're running a business over there where you're making sure the program has enough people participating and you're making it cost effective. The more you do that, the less we have to tax the citizens. And it's great, I appreciate that.
Thanks. But, and I will say, I appreciate that, and thank you. Obviously, this is, we have a great staff team that's over there that does it. Between Katie and the rec staff, and Glenn and the park staff that, help maintain the expense, and then the rec side, increasing their revenue. They work well together, and, they're creative, and they just do a great job, so.
Yeah.
They're really the reason that we're able to stay in that, so.
Thanks, Chris. I don't know if we have name tags for the judges. They probably over at their place, but everybody knows the judges, so I don't know if they need that. Henry, I guess you'll figure out if there's, but come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, judges.
You're on.
Okay. So we're going through the list here, and it looks like justice salaries are up about 2%. The clerical salaries are up about 5%, and I assume that's part of the white collar union contract.
Step increases.
Right. Part-time personnel went down about $6,500 and change, down about 12%. Overtime went down $500. Computer equipment down $7,400. We're getting all brand new computers from the state of New York, the Unified Court System. So that expense is no longer an expense of the town of Webster. So that's a good thing. I'm told they've been delivered somewhere around here. They're supposed to be installed by our IT people. So that's a good thing. Conference expense remains the same, about $3,500. That's to send myself and Judge Sepler to the magistrates convention and any other training sessions that come up. That's a pretty static number. One of the major changes over the years is the court security. There was a time when that line item was zero. We had the special police providing security. And prior to that, we had no security. I started as a judge in 2001. I would venture, time seems to be all blending together, but I would venture to say that over the 6 or 8 years when I first started, there was no security whatsoever. We just trusted in the goodwill of the people of Webster, apparently. And even on days when the sheriff came in without people handcuffed together, that was the only security we had. So the special police was a big change. But that no longer being the case, court security is a major expense, and I think that's true of courts all across the county, local and otherwise. And it's going to be up $1,000 from last year. What else? Supplies, $5,700. That's, of course, paper, envelopes, files, that type of thing is a pretty static expense. Computer software, I'm sorry, copier and software maintenance, it's down to 0. So total expenses are down about $5,300, about 2%. The problem, of course, is revenue, and I always preface by saying, myself, Judge Sepler, speak for Judge Cortor, who was a judge here for 35 years, we certainly never set fines for the purpose of balancing our budget. We set fines based on the severity of the situation, the person's record, and many times their ability to pay the fine. But there's been a number of factors, many of which are out of our control, where very few, there's much less in terms of tickets that have been issued by the various police authorities. It's true of the troopers, Webster Police, Bernard County Sheriff, and just the volume is simply not there for a number of reasons. Certainly there was a time when the New York State troopers parked themselves in 104 and mountain tickets after that, but that's not the case. The other problem, and this comes from Albany, certainly is, you may recall, in June of 2023, the state of New York passed a law that forbid us to scoff anybody's license who didn't pay their fine. You may find that to be counterintuitive, but that is the law. And so as a result, regardless of the fine that's set, and again, certainly many times you set the fine trying to find out the ability of the person to pay the fine in the first place. So let's say that high fine person can pay it. But taking all those factors into account, it was a major hook to be able to scoff someone's license of the failure to pay the fine, and certainly they can pay them on installments. Our clerks have always been very compassionate with people to allow them time to pay the fines, but the state of New York simply took it away from us. So as a result, in order to close the file, we prepare civil judgments, and those judgments are turned over to the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. They file those with the Monroe County Clerk. Certainly, and some days you look in the daily record, and there's lists of all the fines, all the civil judgments filed by all the courts, city, town, village courts, that those all represent unpaid fines. Every once in a while, somebody shows up at the window to pay off their civil judgment when they've applied for a credit card or a lease, or their house went up for sale, that type of thing. But it's certainly the exception, not the rule. So that's the issue here. So it looks like in terms of amount to be raised by taxes, about 18,000 and change more from the year before, and most of that is, I guess, is large part of it is that the clerk's expenses.
Yeah, we had to reduce fines substantially from 98 to 80,000. It's just, as Tom says, it's been the trend.
And there was a time in years past where our revenue exceeded our expenses, and again, that was simply because of the fact of where we were situated with Route 104 running through the town of Webster. But again, it was never a situation where the judges are setting fines with the idea that he's going to balance our budget. It was the sheer numbers that resulted in the revenue collected. So that's where we are. Judge Sutton, there's anything to add?
I think you hit on all the high points, and Judge DeSoto said, there's changes in legislation and trends in law enforcement policies that have impacted the revenues. Those are beyond our control. But the things that are within our control, such as some of the technology expenses
take advantage of various grants that the state puts out every year. One of our clerks, Maryland, is very expertise in filling out the grant forms, so we've been able to cut some of our expenses for capital purchases, especially by applying for grants through the Unified Court System. So,
Excellent.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're gonna get some restroom facility
yes,
upgrades from these grants.
We've applied for grants to, and certainly those restrooms are used, the vast majority of the people who
Yeah.
come to the court.
Right.
So, and there's some other furniture needs that we have some of the furniture that we have. We obtained from the Unified Court System downtown. It was secondhand furniture that we sent our highway department out to pick up over into it, but they're reaching the end of their useful life too. So we're applying for grants to replace that furniture as well. Two
I
things.
just have one question.
Sure.
The computer software and maintenance, it's very small, went from 400 to nothing. Are you still using that? And do you have to pay for supplies, ink, something there?
I think we found that it was actually being charged to office supplies, the 40140.
Okay,
We decided to leave it there.
got it.
I believe as far as software and maintenance is concerned, now that we're transitioning to state devices, that those expenses are also going to be covered by the state as well as that. Am I accurate in saying that?
Excuse me, I don't.
So,
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
well, the transition from the town computer equipment and technological equipment to state equipment also comes with the added benefit of state software and support systems
Yes,
as well.
yes.
So that should also be reflected in some savings for the town.
True. Another example stuff we got from our grant was a nice TV we have in the corporal that we use for travels for district attorney or the defense council puts up videos or body worn camera footage that's probably we had maybe 2-3 years now.
It gets a lot of use.
It gets a lot of use, and again, that was paid for by the Unified Court System, the grant that we applied for, so.
Thank you. It's very, very good that you look into grants to help, offset our taxpayer money. That's a wonderful thing.
And Josh just also touched on it, we have a really amazing staff. They are truly experts in the grant application process.
Yes.
We can't thank them enough for the hard work that they do to help bring these grants to the court system and really improve the overall administration of justice. So they're not here, but thank you.
And to your point, Judge Salvo, with respect to not using the court system to generate revenue, you're 100% right. I had 2 opportunities 2 years ago to see that in effect. My son got a speeding ticket on 104 a couple of years ago, and I was, I don't want to say surprised. It was very nice to see the professionalism and the leniency afforded to people that were in court by the judge. So you're 100% right.
We appreciate that. We always tell, especially the young DAs and public defenders that come in, that the justice court is probably the first and maybe only time someone will see the inside of a courtroom. Yeah. So it's very important to be very, very professional. And I remind them that this is not town court. The proper term, this is justice court. Time to do justice. This is justice court.
You
So,
truly exercise that, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank Paul for his help because it's a daunting process.
Yeah.
Even though we don't have as big a budget as some of the other departments, it's still, if you're not doing it on a regular basis, it's a daunting process. So thank Paul for all his help. You're welcome.
Thanks, Tommy. Appreciate seeing you guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Wow. Bridget, 2 minutes ahead? Told you you'd have extra time.
All right, well, before I jump right into the budget, I believe you have some extra pages in your folder from my department. Being that the communications department is fairly new, within the past 5 years, I wanted to update the board on some of the major accomplishments and some of the objectives I have for this department going forward. I won't run through every single bullet point, but I did want to touch on some of these highlights. So to start that off, both the creation and implementation of the organization-wide style guide as well as the strategic communications plan. I will focus on the strategic communications plan for a second. That has really laid the groundwork for what this department will be.
Is there any way we can get it on the screen for people at home or?
For the
The director of communication,
It's on there.
bullet points?
I
No, not the budget,
I
Oh,
don't have
the
the
bullet
PDFs, but I will upload it to
okay, alright.
I'll upload it to the
Very
website.
cool, very cool.
So the strategic communications plan, as you saw toward the end of 2024, really builds the foundation for what this department will be. Right now, we are looking forward to beginning to implement all the facets of that to really optimize how we're reaching our audiences. So I am looking forward to that. Another major accomplishment we've seen is the Reimagined Town e-newsletter, which was launched a year ago tomorrow. We have sustained an open rate of 72.67%, which is above the industry standard of 41% for government communicators. And we have a sustained click rate of 11.42%, which is above the standard government email communications rate of 2%. I have worked on developing a post and pre-project worksheet, which helps in the creation of communications plan for major projects and initiatives. We have, just to pull another thing out of our accomplishments, we've had major events including the highway ribbon cutting, last week's revaluation kickoff meeting, and we are growing our earned media coverage substantially. Where I'm hoping to go in the next year and beyond is expansion of our digital reach through growth of photographic and video captures. I think we can all agree that we're reaching a more digital landscape, and we need to be keeping ahead of what these trends are so we can make sure to reach as many people as possible. But with that being said, we also can't be leaving any of our audiences behind. So there will be another component of that, which is continuing to expand our other opportunities for community outreach. Where we've seen that most successfully recently is visiting 55 plus living communities, and also in our relationship with the school district growing. We certainly are going to need to be all hands on deck and foot on the gas pedal with our major projects like the comprehensive plan and the 2027 townwide revaluation. Another major objective I'd like to see is updates to the website that will make it more user-friendly and accessible for all of our users. So jumping into the budget and where all of that connects is that you will see that relative to the size of the communications department budget, there is quite an increase over last year. And I'd love to talk you through some of those things. So starting off with administrative salaries, you'll see that jumped from being budgeted at $40,000 last year to $62,000 this year. So I'd love to talk you through the history of this position. The position was initially added in the 2023 cable budget at $45,000. Last year it was approved in the communications budget And at that time, we were waiting on the civil service test results, which were released in April of this year. And then from there, we went on with the hiring process. Note on that is that the money for that position was placeholder funding. In talking to the personnel department, in looking through the union pay scale, we have to compare the position to jobs of similar scopes, duty, and necessary qualifications to other positions. So it is paid equitably to other similar roles. And that's why you'll observe the change from what was budgeted last year to what the actuals were this year. We do have someone coming on board. His start date is this coming Monday, August 4th. And we're very excited to dive into some of these opportunities as, especially as we're seeing some of these major projects like the revaluation, like the comprehensive plan, and like major capital projects like we're seeing down at the sewer. Part-time personnel, you'll see that there's a slight decrease from last year. The reason for that is to pair up with what actuals are so far this year, but also because that full-time communications assistant will also be playing a substantial role in taking on shifts for producing board meeting videos and audio. For several other lines, we are relatively stable. Seminars and conferences, you'll see, has gone up from last year. This year I attended the National Association of Government Communicators conference, which I found to be extremely helpful, meeting with several other director level government communicators from throughout the country. I was able to bring back several talking points and ideas that we've already started implementing. Office supplies is slightly up based on another person, but also based on seeing that we do have the capacity to take on creating some of our own in-house materials. So a couple of examples of that are the highway department ribbon cutting, the invitation to that event, and the postcards that have been advertising the revaluation events, like the one we had on July 22nd, and also the one advertising what is coming up on September 25th for the exemption workshop. We are creating those in-house to save on printing costs, but you will see a slightly higher office supply line. And then the last line there you'll see is website design and maintenance. That was budgeted for 2025 based on what was budgeted in the cable department for 2024. And we just right-sized that based on what actuals were from this year. And I am happy to take any questions.
Well, I don't have a question, but I like the outline of the accomplishments. Because there's more going on in communications than folks realize. And I do like the idea of expanding reach through photos and videos, because there's so many great things that happen in the town and people don't know, or if they see an event and they don't know what it is, if there's some visuals and some clips and things that engage the residents of Webster, it'll drive more participation to some of the many, many great events that are offered through town. I know Parks and Recreations, the big summer celebration that just grows every single year, that's a fabulous event. And there's more that's gonna happen, and I know very important with the revaluation project. And the first community event was a real success. We have a couple of years and a lot more educating to do, so those things are gonna be very important.
Absolutely, thank you, Councilwoman Wright.
So we hired an outside entity to do our website design and maintenance. I thought we were doing that in-house.
We do the maintenance of it in-house, but to host the site, that's what the cost, the contractual cost is. We are
Because it says maintenance here.
Yeah, so that is like super back end maintenance. So we meet with like a client success manager several times a year, and that's part of our redesign costs. And this is just paying for that redesign that we had.
So, is this an annual cost, I take it, for website design and maintenance, or is it just when
So-
they do something different, we pay them?
So it is and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but it is a 5-year cost that's split among 5 years.
I think that's correct.
So our redesign was done in 2023, and that redesign covers 5 years.
Okay. And your administrative salaries for 2025 was 40,000, then it jumped to 62,000 for 2026, and that was where you were saying,
Yes, so what was put in there last year was a placeholder that was determined between the supervisor's office, myself, and personnel. That test was administered back in November of 2024. Test results did not come back until April, and in that time, we were working on, with New York State, determining where this job compares as far as duties, scope, and qualifications to other similar jobs. And that's where the pay scale was determined from there based on civil service.
so that's a full-time position, I take it?
That's a full-time position, yes, it's a communications assistant position.
And it's a civil service,
Correct.
and we approve for the civil service position.
So what the process was that the test was administered in November of last year. We received the list in April of this year. Brayton canvassed the list of reachable exam takers. We received that back, only received interest from 2 people based on civil service law, being that neither of those applicants stood out as the correct fit for us. We canvassed, or we put out the position provisionally. We received back several applications, held interviews, and ultimately chose our candidate who starts on Monday.
What's the civil service test, the title for that test?
Communications assistant.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Just one question, anyway, I wanted to thank you, I know you do a wonderful job and everything, but to have we, well, we already passed the thing, but this is maybe redundant, like having a freelance or a contractor to do per diem or something like that, because I know that we cut down the the part-time personnel, which is great, but we add on this position, which is gonna be, pensions and everything else and stuff like that, so it's gonna add on more for the expense.
Certainly, and this is not a new position. It was in the communications budget last year, certainly at a lower amount, and it was also budgeted and approved in 2023 in the cable budget.
Because I know like all the town, they only have like one, person to do the position, and I know this is a lot. It comes from a marketing perspective. I get it, I understand, and you have to promote our town, which I appreciate that very much.
Actually, several towns do have a communications assistant. The town of Arundequoit does, the town of Parrington does, the town of Penfield has similar roles that perform similar functions, and I believe the town of Greece also does. So towns of the scale of our size do have 2 or more folks.
Are they all full-time positions, the assistants?
Yes.
We're running into some benchmarking problems right now, because I should have had the foresight to do this on this presentation, that you really gotta look at the cable department that was here, or what was called the cable department, for 2021, 22, all the way across, and, because you got communications here on the actuals of 0, 0, whatever, because we didn't have a
Yeah, it was $107,000 in 2024 communications, or the cable access was.
Yeah, and I would imagine we'd have to go back in time to look at the previous ones because there was actual in communications of 77,000. Was there actual in cable, as you're saying? Cable.
Communications actual in 2024 was 77,000.
Right.
Cable access in 2024 was 107,000.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. So we had, or whatever. How many positions were in cable and then authorized to be increased in cable for full-time and part-time? Then as you had this kind of cable and communications that was approved in the '24 budget, which was done in mid-23, and then all of a sudden at the end of '23, when you were hired, and we started staffing communications and we had a cable department, within a week or two of that, our cable director had an opportunity to leave, and we decided not to replace with that full-time equivalent cable director and started to migrate everything over to communications. And I don't know if this tells the story, because you can sit here and say, geez, it looks like we're increasing our full-time equivalents and all that. I don't know really if we are, compared to what was lobbied and approved back in '22 and '23 by the cable director for what essentially is, and another benchmarking problem is that Penfield has a cable person who is doing communications, this and that, so it's kind of a semantic issue, like, well, how do you compare towns our size for what are they investing in communications, in defined communications? Well, this person handles the website. Well, I think that's communications. Well, we have that in IT, which we found out from a couple of people at the March 27th symposium. So if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I don't think the website is IT. I think that should be communications, but it's not my town. So we've had challenges on comparing apples to oranges, or apples to apples on our communications department. I do know this, and Luke, hey, I hope he's watching. He starts on Monday, right? We're pretty high on this guy. Comes very highly recommended. Has done this for the county. We think we have just stockpiled talent on that. But I think that you were surprised, as was Brayton, that once you got the test results back and you saw all this, and when you started to really look at what that position pays, we had as a placeholder for the '25 budget, which we were doing in mid-24, we were off on that. There's no other way to explain that. Now the good news is that in '25 we had it as 40 grand. Well, we haven't spent a dime in '25, so I guess look at the bright side of that. Luke is starting with 5 months left, so we'll stay under that budget. If you want to say from a financial standpoint, the bad news is we're up in next year's by 22,000 over what we budgeted. I would like to think that based on how these projects and what we want to do, and man, we're like, Luke can't get here fast enough. This is a $51 million organization that's got 400 employees and 45,000 customers. And I got to tell you something, I don't think it's possible to appropriately handle communications and maximize that with one person. That's just my opinion. And how you then do it with outsourced firms and this and that, yeah, that's a whole nother kettle of fish, as far as I'm concerned on how to do that. So, but anyway, and I do want to just tie into something as we tie up today's meeting. Certainly, if anybody has more questions or comments for Bridget, I want them to have them. But something you said, Ginny, about, well, you know, it's all, I forget what you said, but it's already approved and whatever. I want to make sure I go back to my preamble. Nothing's approved.
We approved the 40,000, like you said.
We did approve the 40,000
Yeah,
for
a placeholder,
25.
yeah,
Yes.
but we did not
Right.
for the 62,000.
Yeah, the 5,000 on the part-time personnel, well, I don't want to, let's put it this way, on November 1st, 2024, that young lady over there, all of a sudden I had to go and say, hey, remember that job we hired you for 3 days ago? Hate to tell you this, but you now have to do these 3 closeouts of the cable department. You have to close out that building that's 2,100 square feet over there on Picture Parkway. That was not under your job duties when we hired you. You have to figure out this system within the boardroom as far as microphones and cameras and YouTube and all that. And the third one is Cable 1303. Those things were all set up when we got a communications director to be in the cable department. They were not to be in the communications department. So I could make an argument that really for almost a year, almost more than a year, you were performing cable department closeout things, and I appreciate that. But it's now time for us to really ramp up this communication department and do what I know it can do. And I've already seen some of the results, and I think that one that you described, the monthly newsletter, we can sit there and say, I don't like the content, I like the old one that was weekly, it was better, it had more things. That's subjective. That's subjective. And I'll open my mind to any subjective opinions, because that's what it is. But what is irrefutably objective is that the people that were getting that weekly newsletter prior to 25, prior to 20, in 24 and beyond, the people that were opening that and hitting the links were very minor. Very minor. It was almost as though a tree was falling in the woods and nobody was there to hear it. Her keeping track of the 72% open rate, because we do it through Constant Contact, so we can see who opens it. And then we can see who hits the links, because the way it's formatted, it's just got a brief description, but if you're like, I'm interested in that story, then you hit the link. And as she said earlier, I've been thrilled that we have been able to maintain those type of high numbers that blow away by double what governments usually get to open their emails and hit their links. We didn't have that kind of granularity back when we sent out weekly newsletters. That's just a fact. There's no subjectivity to that. That's an objective fact. And now, what she didn't tell you is that I had said at the beginning of this year, oh great, you're achieving these results with 1,200 email addresses from our citizens. Now we know there's 15,000 houses. 1,200 houses are represented. How do we, by the end of the year, get that up to 2,000 houses? And so we came up with a plan where Kim Doyle, myself, and Bridget, we would come through with 100 new email addresses a month. And we would drop them in. You're about to drop another 100 into August, right? Which will get you to around 1,600 email addresses, where we started the year at around 1,100 or 1,200. And what we assumed was going to happen was that because these people didn't sign up for the newsletter, these are ones that, based on our interaction with them over the last week or month, and we got their email address, put them in there, let's see what happens. There's a part at the bottom that says unsubscribe. We assumed those new ones over the last couple months would be less likely to open it or hit the links, and it's been the exact opposite. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, not to refute what you're saying, open rates among those new ads, because we're able to segment those results, is slightly lower, but overall we're maintaining that high open rate. I will also add that we've reached quite a bit of organic sign up through landing pages and through our website sign up page. So in the past month, I think we've seen a growth. About nearly 100 people have signed up on their own.
And I will say this, and we're, you can tell I love communications. The town board will get my weekly update tomorrow. I've already got the comp plan done on it. As far as, I think everybody knows that back on June 12th, Colliers in our planning department had the steering committee second meeting, I think here in this room, correct? And at that time, they reported that the Webster2040.com website, where we were getting surveys and also interactive people putting a dot and giving a narrative of what they wanted, on that website, we had 219 surveys filled out on June 12th, and we had 173 people that put a dot with a narrative. And the plan was that we were going to have that open from April 22nd, which is when we had our first public engagement meeting over at the rec center, to June 15th. But I think everybody said that's not enough. That's not enough public engagement to really gauge what this town wants. So we sat down with Colliers. Bridget was very much involved in this, and we said, look, we want you to keep that open past June 15th. We want it to July 31st, July 30th. Now, if that 45-day extension is going to cause a problem with your schedule of this year and a half, updating the comprehensive plan, let's get that out right now, because I would rather us throw everything but the kitchen sink at trying to get people to fill out these surveys. Now, at that time, Colliers basically looked and said, well, this is what we do, this is what you do. Bridget said, you know what, this is what we can do. We can do this, 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 this from our communication department. It's closed out yesterday. Yesterday was the last day. We had 219 surveys on June 12th. We ended with 837 surveys. We quadrupled it in the last 45 days. And nothing against Colliers, but that was the effort of the town communication. And the Chris Bilos and the library and everybody that jumped in. On June 12th, we had 173 dots on the map on Webster 2040. 173 with a narrative written in what they want. We ended yesterday with 683. We quadrupled the surveys and quadrupled the narratives in 45 days. Colliers even said, we thought you were kind of crazy, Tom, that you wanted to keep this open for 45 days. In their response, they said, this is unbelievable. We have never had this kind of participation leading in to a comprehensive plan update. Now, they're going to have their next steering committee update meeting sometime in late August or early September, and Jennifer, you're on that steering committee. They will have a lot more to show you than they did on June 12th, because that's a lot more people. And I want to say this again, this is no disrespect to Colliers. There was the scope of what they do. They didn't do anything outside of that scope, which they shouldn't. Our communications department and other departments here jumped in, and that's how we got those results. I'm going to tell you, communications is uber important. Lips flap. How do we reconcile lips flapping about it being important with the actions and investment we take in communications going into the future? So, I will get off my soapbox. Any other questions or comments for Bridget?
No.
All right, well,
Thank you.
gang, thank you. That concludes our first Town Board Budget Workshop for the 2026 proposed budget. Have a good night.